The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.
No ifs, ands, or buts. I got it right, baby. That's what I'm talking about. Matthew Butts joined us right here, of course, for our show every single week, 948-4958, 948-4958, mbutslaw.net. Joins us every single week. Mr. Butts, how are you, sir?
Doing well. How about you?
I'm good. Are you staying busy? Have you been busy recently? That's a
You
good
know,
thing.
last week, yes. This week, I'm able to catch up on a whole lot of stuff because it's spring break and not a lot of no court, not a lot of meetings going on this week. So, whole lot of office time for me.
I want to start right there because today you're going to give us hopefully a one-word answer. I want to know, and I did this because I think it's going to be great clickbait, but it's not really bait because it's real deal. What's the biggest reason for divorce? Don't answer that question yet. Don't answer that question. Don't answer the question.
Okay.
Because that's what I'm going to ask you. What's the biggest question? What's the biggest reason why we have divorce when people come to you? Before we do that, though, I want to ask you a couple questions off the cuff. Most people that are lawyers will say they love going to court. They don't want to go to court because if you have to go to court, you guys can't figure it out. And if you've ever been to court, particularly divorce court, you realize that you will get before a judge and a judge will go, figure this crap out because if I have to do it, you're probably not going to like what you hear. And 9 out of 10 times, it seems like that usually works. And it saves a lot of money. It just saves everything. But do you really like going into the courtroom and actually performing? Do you like that part of it?
I do. I do a whole lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you got to think like my first experience with the court system was as a judicial assistant inside the court. So it just kind of became home to me. And that doesn't mean we won't settle while we're there. We may try the case while we're there, but I like being there.
Do you practice your closings? Do you or do you just let it fly?
No, what I do is I do intense preparation, and I go with it. So you know, in a former life, I was a preacher. I never wrote out a sermon either, but I
Wow.
knew exactly where it was going to go. I let my exhibits lead me, and it keeps me more on my toes because
Yeah.
if you're working off a script, you got to think back to that part of the script sometimes. But if you just know it and it's just kind of infused, then I end up doing a lot better job.
Oh, this is such a interesting way you've taken me down this path. Now I'm gonna roll with it. The fact that you used to do sermons, how does that play into your law practice? We always talk about doing it right. You've been super good with your time with me, and I almost, this guy's so good, folks, that I wish I had something to hire him for. I wish I did. I mean, and I might someday. I might have a reason to call.
I hope not.
To call Matthew 948-4958. I hope not. But you know a lot more about my life than I know about yours. But what are some of the things that you've used from your sermon abilities? What are some things you haven't used? What are some comparisons? You know where I'm going with this? I would think that would be just what a blessing to have that acumen in your system, and then all of a sudden be able to perform, if you will, in a court.
Yeah, so you know, historically, there have been a lot of people going from law to theology. A lot of historical figures have done that. I got my undergrad from a seminary and then realized I'm not great at working in churches. I'm a bit too confrontational and direct for that.
Yeah.
And I may cuss a little too much. So, but what I found is just how I learned to read text and examine text and check out just every angle of it really translated over to law. So when it comes to that end of it, I felt like I was super prepared for it. Also, I have dealt with people who were in really bad spots or hurting people for a long, long time. So I know, at least for me, the way that I'm wired,
Mhm.
when I was working in churches, I kind of felt like my hands were tied because it will always end with, I will pray for you.
Yeah.
Okay, which is great. I believe God moves through prayer, but I want to get out and throw punches. So I feel like this is a better job for me. As far as operating in court, it's a little different because when you're doing sermons, I mean, you got 3 points and you're just expositing those things. In court, I try to listen more than I speak. I'm not in love with the sound of my own voice, but I interject where I need to. But I'm also not going to blow a whole lot of smoke and use 40 words where five are going to suffice. So it's a little bit different there. But as far as public speaking, yeah, that super prepared me for this.
Do you ever find yourself getting preachy?
No.
Okay.
Not in court. Not in court. And I don't really get preachy in the office either. However,
And you
I
could use
do
that,
kind of
but a lot
know.
of people say, what does that mean, preachy? I mean, it could mean just badgering somebody or using the Lord's name and whatever you want to call it. It depends on preachy is a very subjective word.
Right. Well, I mean, as far as preaching goes, I will tell people do this, do not do this. I will be very, very direct about that. So that might come off a little bit preachy, but I always give an explanation too. If you do this, then this will likely happen. If you do that, that will likely happen. Type
When
thing.
I started a Christian show last Monday, and by the way, you're welcome to come on at any time. I won't charge you anything. You just come on. It is on 101.1 The Truth. It's on from
Mhm.
5 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. It's on the biggest antenna in the state. It covers 5 states. And you're welcome to come on anytime. We'd love to have you on.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you.
it's called Mission Minded. Keep your mind, your mission, your mind. Um, as I've gotten closer with my Lord and Jesus Christ and my Savior, and my kids sometimes give me a hard time for it. They're like, you can't talk about anything, can't talk about the weather without mentioning, Lord Jesus Christ, blah 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 blah. I say, come on, I'll do that. But if I ever get an opportunity to get up there and mention the Lord's name, I'll do it. And I like to read rooms. I think I read rooms pretty good. But if you've had a client of yours who is just steadfast in their faith, and they do feel that way truly about their Lord and Jesus Christ, do you tell them to temper it back a little bit so it doesn't look like they're using that in front of a judge, or do you just tell them to go for it? And do judges like that?
Well, I mean, if it gets to the point where you're on the stand, then the questions are pretty direct. I
Hmm.
tell them not to trail off with anything. The answers are yes, no, I don't understand the question. If it's an open-ended question, then answer it in only the words necessary to answer that question. So lots of time, their faith really won't interject into that, but if it does, I've got no problem with it. Not That's who you are.
Yeah.
So
We're going to do an entire show on how to answer questions
yeah,
next week because
yeah.
you just brought this up, and actually, it's amazing you brought this up. This is where this telepathic thing between you and I goes really, really well because that is the number one thing. If you try to answer a question without a yes or a no, the judge will hammer on you over and over and over to the point where they're like,
Objection, Your Honor,
yeah,
non-responsive. Yep.
I'm just they're going to go answer it yes or no, and the job of the other side is to pepper you with these questions that they know you're going to say yes to, but the answer is really no
Right.
because maybe it's happened once. And was this ever happened? You're like, well, yeah, but that, and you no,
Mhm.
yes, and then that's why I pay you. That's why I pay Matt Butts because then you will pepper me with the questions to alleviate any sense of wrongdoing by saying, yeah, well, this happened, but explain what you mean, Mr. Curry. Well, I meant
Yeah.
yes, but blah, blah, blah. Have you ever left your 3-year-old alone in the house all by herself? Yes.
Yeah.
Really? And next thing you know, I look like a creep. Well, yeah, I walked out to
Uh,
the mailbox and
You
got the
have to
mail and I
let
came
it
back in.
be until redirect. You have to let it
You have
be.
to let it go until redirect. And that's where a great lawyer comes into play. Um, Final question, then we'll move on to our topic. Do you like going first or second?
I like going first. You're talking about in court?
Yeah.
I like I like going first.
Okay. Um, if you ever watch like Judge Judy or whatever, you watch these shows and you're like, oh, that guy is this, he is as guilty as the day is long. And then when you hear the rebuttal, you're like, maybe not, maybe not so much. You're like, there's no way this dude could get out of this. Next thing you're like, wait a minute. And that lawyer's pretty good.
Well, the trick is you call your own witness, and so there's direct examination and cross examination. Under direct examination, there are so many rules. Under cross examination, very few rules. So
There are
you're
so
going to
many
take
rules in what now?
in direct examination. So if I call a witness, there's a lot of rules to the questions that I ask them. However, when cross examination happens and the other attorney comes up there, very few rules. So I want to call my client and then any other witnesses that I have, then rest and make them call their own client so I get them on cross-examination.
There you go. Okay. I love it. mbutslaw.net, mbutslaw.net. That's BUTTS, 948-4958, 948-4958. No ifs, ands, or buts. Get it? It's the only podcast out there with that name, I believe, and that's why we picked that. So it's easy to find. It's, of course, on every platform out there when it comes to social media, and, of course, every podcast platform. And we traditionally run in the top 6 or 7% of all podcasts from coast to coast. So we're very, very proud of that. And that's because of shows like this that are really good. Now you're like, I got a question for the lawyer. Info at TonyCurryRadio.net. Info at TonyCurryRadio.net. We're giving you free law advice. Yes, someday we may do the show live. And if you want to join me on my night show from 5 to 6, just tell me when you want to come on, and we can actually take questions. It's 941-1011. We take live phone calls and stuff. So that'd be a lot of fun. All right. Kind of a loaded question, but I knew that if I use this as a tag, that a lot of people would go, ooh, what's the number one reason people come to you to get a divorce? What's the number one reason? If you had to put it in one answer, what would it be? The majority of the time.
Such a hard question.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know the answer really because there's so many.
Miscommunication. Is it? Well, I guess the easy answer is cheating.
I see
Is it
selfish
cheating or?
people. I see hurt people. I see I see so many different kinds of people. Some people who want out, some people who don't want out, some people who are being forced through this thing. Some people who have cheated, some people who just say, I want a new me. I mean, it just, I don't know that there is a number one because you never know what's walking through the door. I've got one right now where the guy did not want a divorce at all, but she's on drugs and she's running amok and living her best teenage life all over again.
Mm.
And so it's just so many different situations. But I mean, just broken hearts I guess that would be the number one thing.
Yeah. For a lot of us, when we've used that old adage, death by a thousand cuts, or the divorce spoon, or the dirty coffee spoon. A lot of times it's gotten to the point where you just kind of see the red flags are popping up left and right, and you do love your mate because you've been with that person for 20 years or whatever it is for a specific case. But it's not a heart wrenching. At the end of the day, it doesn't. It's like maybe you've just gotten tired of walking on eggshells long enough. You're like,
Right.
you don't realize how good it feels to actually be, back. And a lot of people love to rebound. There's some people out there that just have to be around another person. They just like having somebody in their life, and they're willing to put up with a lot of crap to go through that. And sometimes that settles in divorce. I guess my reason I was asking that question was I wanted to take a more preventative approach to divorce today with you. So I want you to put your
Yeah.
psychotherapy hat on, because I know that you're in this business. It's a necessary business, but you don't want to see people get divorced. I mean, if you get a guy and a girl and they're wanting to go through a divorce proceeding, and I'm not saying this has ever happened before, but is there any sense of reconciliation? I can remember I had a preacher that was actually living next door to me at my old house, the house that the judge told me I had to sell after we get divorced. And I told him, I said, listen, I'm going through this thing. And we were so far gone. I mean, we've been through mediation. It was the bridge was burnt to a crisp.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, let's sit down and talk about reconciliation. I said, no, Roger, you don't get this. There is no reconciliation. Tony, with the good Lord, there's always reconciliation. There's always a chance. I said, for me, there is. I mean, I'd sit down and talk to a marriage counselor right now if she do it. But I said, from her standpoint, that's not going to happen. So you have to both be on the same side. Talk about some of the things we can do as married people, so we don't go through death by a thousand cuts, divorce. So we don't go a thing where we just get tired of each other, where we're just waiting for the kids to age out so we can start another life again in our mid 40s. Or are there any right answers for that? Can you kind of what's something through your process that you've seen over and over and over again, and you're like, man, if I could have gotten to you 5 or 6 years earlier, maybe we could have saved this marriage.
Well, a lot of people treat marriage as if it's just an attachment to their life and not a priority in their life.
Amen.
You've got, if you're going to be married, there's a reason why they say it's hard work. If it's not hard work, then something's going wrong there. I mean, don't get me wrong. You can work hard until it kind of becomes easy, but that doesn't happen immediately. People want to check out at the first one or two wrong things that go down. They want to put divorce on the table like very, very quickly. And I would say don't do that. It should be a last resort if the marriage can't work. It, there's so many people that I see who keep that mindset and who are really trying, but they're dragged through divorce anyways. And if that's the case, there's nothing you can do about it. The judge will grant a divorce.
Yeah.
But just drop everything, because if you lose your marriage and your family unit, that's the most important thing in your life. It's not your job. It's not the next vacation you're going to take. It's your wife and children, or your husband and your children. So, and again, don't get me wrong. There are times where divorce needs to happen, but for just a regular couple who the flames just burning out, man, reignite it. Do something. Make it a priority. Do not stop, because I guarantee there are other things in your life that you're pressing the gas full throttle on. Uh, do it with this too.
Yeah.
Treat your marriage like that.
My buddy Dr. Josh Claypool always talks about what do they call that? The circles that cross over each other. What do they call that?
Yeah, I know what you're talking
You know
about.
what I'm
I
talking about. You
forget.
get the man, the woman, and if anyone ever says you complete me, you got issues. You know what I mean? You shouldn't need
That's
another
right.
human being to complete you.
You
You need to
don't.
be on your own. She needs to be on your own, and you obviously have that area that you share. And I forget what that circle thing's called. And that's really really important. What's crazy to me is how many people get married. She's pregnant on their honeymoon, and she's going to be popping out the first kid 9 months in it. In some cases, that's fine if you talk about it first. I think it's really important. I don't think enough people sit down and actually talk about, well, when do you want to have our first child, and do you want to adopt, and oh, by the way, if we're going to have this child, how do you want to raise this child? What type of what's your religion affiliation? I mean, if you're Jewish and you're Catholic, can we do this together? Is this how it's so? Have those discussions, because you will have those discussions. Eventually, they're going to come out. But talk a little bit about how many people actually believe that having a child will keep a marriage together.
I mean, look, I've spoken with people who every time it seems like every time they go through a hard time, they try to fix it with the child. And I'm not saying that's one party or the other. It's just kind of what happens. Uh, it's not the best idea, because all you're doing, if you've ever had a child, you realize that especially those first 5 or 6 years, it's tough, man.
Oh man, yeah,
I mean, because if you're already in a stressful situation and then all of a sudden you're waking up so many times every night, every 2 hours to feed this baby, and you start getting resentment because the other partner isn't doing it, and just gonna add more. It might shift your focus off of the problems in the marriage, but those things are gonna come back eventually. So all you're doing is sweeping it under the rug.
yeah. Talk a little bit about he's Matthew Butts, and I appreciate you letting me kind of go off the road here, because a great
Yeah.
interview is it was one where you giving me more questions than I could possibly write down right now. And it's just amazing. It's great stuff. 948-4958, 948-4958, mbutts.law.net. Um, uh, Talk a little bit about roles. We're talking about preventative. We're trying to save a marriage here, and I'm not saying by the time you'd probably hire Matt, it's probably pretty far gone. I'm not saying have you ever had a reconciliation?
Oh yeah.
Have you?
I've seen reconciliations, and one of the most beautiful things I would see when I worked for the court is when pro se litigants, people without attorneys, would get up there for trial day, because Judge Appel, if you didn't have an attorney, she would make you appear, and that's for good reason, because nobody needs to be getting steamrolled in this thing.
Yeah.
And you would just see tears well up, and if I mean, I think I remember one time Judge Appel saying, "Do you want this divorce?" And both of them going, "No," just
Wow.
crying, and then dismissing the case that day and then reconciling. I remember just that felt so good to see. There are other times where there'll be a
What could possibly make two people say that I go from I want to spend my life to you, I don't want to spend my life with you anymore, and then reconcile that quickly?
sometimes you just need the biggest, most expensive fight ever.
Yeah, money will do
The
that. That's a
previous
great point.
bites didn't cut it. You need a big one.
Yeah.
And then say, okay, not worth it. We want to stay together. And that's okay. However you get there, man. I'm for it.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I think is really interesting, and this is always so therapeutic, and I think a lot of people, I've gotten info at TonyCurryRadio.net. I've gotten several emails and like, thank you for talking about this stuff because this is uncomfortable for a lot of people. And I think a lot of people will listen to the show. Hey, I found this new show on Tony Curry Radio. It's with this lawyer. It's called No Ifs, Ands, or Buts. But just let's give it a shot so they can somewhat mediate their discussion.
Yeah.
Well, that's a very interesting question that Tony just. What do you think about that, honey? One of those kind of things.
Yeah.
But I think too many people get into relationships and they don't know what their role is. And what I mean by that is, okay, have these discussions. Okay, we're having a child. Okay, are you staying home or am I staying home? Are we both working? If we're both working, how are we going to deal with this? Oh no, okay, you want to stay home and you want me to work. Okay, well, you make more money than I do, so you know that I'm going to take on some extra work in order to do this. So you realize that my role in this particular marriage is going to be different. I may not be able to do the laundry like every Saturday like I normally do, or I may have to travel more often. Do you understand that? And then talk about, and this is another show that I want to get into, and I see this over and over and over again. Maybe it's just me, and maybe I'm sour grapes, where men and women will be in relationships, they get married, the kids age out, and then all of a sudden, the woman's sitting there going, I've been sitting home for 18, 19 years taking care of these rugrats, and now I want to go do something for myself. I want to start my own business. I want to get back in the business world. I'm still young. I still got plenty of time. But I haven't worked in 20 years. And so I want to get back out there. And all of a sudden, the husband's like, whoa, where's my dinner? Hold on. You're changing. What are you talking about? You're changing things up on me here. I thought we had it all good. Everything was great for me. I get to play golf on Saturday afternoons with my buddies. I was going on my trips and all that's good. And all of a sudden, you're telling me you need $500 to go start your own business at the Brass Bear. What the hell's going on here? Talk a little bit about that role play and how important it is to describe your roles before you actually get involved in something like marriage.
Yeah. And everybody's different, and marriage is adapting to another person, right? Until you become one unit. So I know, at least with me and my wife, our plan was I was going to finish school, then she was going to finish school. Then I was going to go back to school. Then if she wanted to go back to school, like we'd do that. But about when I was 33, I looked at her and said, are you going back? She said, no, I don't think so. I said, okay, I want to try law school.
Okay.
It is about being flexible because you have to understand that everybody's got dreams. Everybody wants to do something, and maybe they don't want to change, and that's okay too. But communicate these things, talk about these things. Nothing needs to be a surprise here.
Yeah.
And look, if she's done all that for 20 years, then wants to get a job, hey, it's time for you to be flexible too, because you wouldn't have been able to do all the things you did had she not done all these things for 19 years. So it's give and take, and it's understanding that it's two human beings, right? We don't work with robots. We work with human beings who really have desires and want to go do things. So communication is key there. If you are able to communicate the things you want to do and not spring it on somebody, because that's the thing too. You don't want to spring something on somebody. You want to communicate it and talk about it. But if you're able to do that, then generally it goes a lot better.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. Well, I always find that it's easier to ask for permission than it is to ask for
forgiveness.
Yeah, and I think a lot of guys do that wrong. And they think flowers are going to.
Oh, we do.
But I will say this: having gone through this process, and a lot of guys are going like, "Oh yeah, my wife stayed home and she was great, and it's a hard job, and she took care of the kids, and she did the little league things while I was out of town, blah blah blah." And all of a sudden, she's wanting to go off and start her own business, and of course, first of all, it's got to be financially viable, and because she's had one job, it doesn't mean you can't go off and do another job. That goes for men too, where if you're in a job, you've had a job for 15 or 20 years, it's going pretty well. All of a sudden you have an opportunity to go off and take another job or a job maybe out of another town. That's one of those things where you sit down and have a discussion. I know men hate that word communication. Do you, because men don't want to talk about it. We just think that things are going to work out. We just think, okay, it's not a problem. It's not worthy of arguing. We're still going to have sex tonight. I'm good. But eventually that pimple is going to get into ingrown hair. And next thing you know, it's going to internalize and you're not going to be able to pop it. Next thing you know, you got yourself, a doctor's appointment because you got this monstrosity on your back.
That's the most disgusting analogy.
Well, thank you very much. I was watching Dr. Pimple Popper last night. And I was like, that is the nastiest show I've ever seen, but I couldn't turn it off. I was like, yeah. But it's true. You can deal with it now or you can deal with it later. But so many times guys just think that things are going to fix themselves.
It's just all going to work out.
We need to realize that women want to talk everything out.
I know. Yeah.
They do. I mean, men are like, let it go. We can get, you and I can have a fight. I always think it's funny. I can see two guys getting in a big ass fight. And then 3 minutes later, they're sharing a cigarette.
Yeah.
They smoke a cigarette and you're like, you smoke. Oh, can I bum a cigarette? Sure.
Because you got it out. It's
I just
done.
kicked the shit out of you, but you're going to smoke one of my cigarettes. So, I mean, it's just amazing how that goes. Final question here, and then we're going to let you fly. And of course, if you got any questions, love to get them. We're going to do some shows where we just do emails because we get a ton of questions here. info@TonyCurryRadio.net, info@TonyCurryRadio.net. His number is 948-4958, mbutslaw.net. Do you have, since you're a divorce attorney, and I thought that someone actually threw this question at me the other day, like, ask him, is there a busy time of the year? In other words,
yes.
Is there a time of the year when more divorces happen, and why is that?
So the fourth quarter is the slowest time of the year. You got to think, you got Thanksgiving, you got Christmas. People are trying to make it through those holidays. Then January 1 hits. New year, new me. Christmas went wrong. Everything's bad. Let's go. Like, we get flooded. Really? Yeah. So January, into February and March, summer's pretty solid. A lot of people, when school lets out, they want to see if they can get a custody change before school lets back in. That's not going to happen. If you get a 3-month custody change, let me know how you do it.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how that works.
Yeah.
And then you get back into the fourth quarter. So yeah, we definitely, I mean, it's really busy all year until the fourth quarter. I mean, we'll see high spots. January, obviously. March is pretty busy. June, July, August. Yeah, so we're pretty much busy all year except for the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and I can certainly see that because I think a lot of people just want to get through the holidays. Let's just get through the holidays. Let's do it for the kids. Make sure they think everything's going great, and then come January, man, it's time to move on. But
yeah,
it's not a good New Year's resolution, is it? It really isn't. Great stuff, my friends. Always good. mbutslaw.net, mbutslaw.net, 948-4958, 948-4958. Tell people about no ifs, ands, or buts. We do the show every single week. He is Matt, and I appreciate everything you do, man. Thank you so much for the time, and we'll catch up a little bit later on next week, my man.
Appreciate it, Tony.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio.